everyone, and welcome back to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where every week we take a random prompt and build an entire world around it. My name is Casey, and as always, I'm joined with Isaac.
Yo, hello, yo. So, last week I made a monstrosity of a world, just absolutely horrific, where pencils murdered, paper and children.
So a 7-year-old child in graphic detail.
Yes, so today we are trying to take that insane world where arts and crafts supplies come to life and actually make it a, good world, something that you could actually see yourself writing a story in.
Without going to Toy Story, because then it's just a ripoff at that point.
Yeah, we don't want to just copy Toy Story or Animal Farm. That was kind of what the world was. It was a combination of Toy Story and Animal Farm.
I like to think Animal Farm is an ideology of story, and therefore it's okay to copy it versus, like, Toy Story itself.
Yeah, just the concept of toys coming to life.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we want to start with this world?
How they got rid of the family.
Yeah, sure. So, in this world, there was a family that had a child that played with the arts and crafts, but then in the original world, they just murdered the family. But we don't want to go too dark.
Of all things?
Yeah, with coffee. They murdered them with coffee. And so in this world, I guess maybe we could have them be gotten rid of by scaring them out of the house and then pretending to be normal arts and craft supplies, and everybody thinks they're crazy. But then you have the problem of what happens if somebody were to buy the house.
So part of me just wants to go even darker than you went.
Weren't you complaining about us going dark?
Just give me a moment. Because we had the whole talking about them having the credit card and being able to order, like, new craft supplies and stuff to make the house and to enslave and things. So what if... I mean, these are arts and crafts tools. If anyone can do it, it's them. They, puppeteered the dead family. And just created a family that never left its house, that worked from home. Maybe they were like freelance writers. I feel like crafting supplies would be good writers. Or they opened an Etsy store where they self-sacrifice some of their people into crafts to then sell to make money. And the neighbors wonder why the family never leaves the house, but they just assume they never see them leave the house, and surely they do at some point.
So we're keeping the child murder in this version, yes? That's what you're wanting?
I mean, unless you want the child to be partnered up with the crafts and the murder of his parents, which seems even darker somehow.
This is awful. This is the idea was to make it less dark and not, make it more lighthearted and everything. No, this is just as bad as last time.
Look, the reason why I wanted to keep it lighthearted last time was because I was feeling like I was trying to compete against you to destroy the colored pencils. I'm not competing against you anymore. I can join the dark side.
Wow, okay then. So I suppose they could sacrifice each other and themselves to make money by creating some arts and crafts.
Or it could just be they order supplies of other people and just specifically use only those to actually.
Oh wow, this is just getting so dark.
This is definitely a rated R craft movie.
This is not any better than what I created.
Yeah, but at least now it makes sense where they're getting money to resupply themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Although it could just say rich family.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like there's the reason why now there's no police investigations and things.
Okay.
Because they're just, yeah. This family just cuts themselves off from society. No one really knows why, but nobody questions it.
Okay. So where else are we gonna go with this world? Because the idea was to sort of fix the world, fix the absurdity that I created. But it seems like we're keeping it mostly the same. So I'm not really sure what to do with this.
No, it's just that. I mean, we could talk about the actual society they're building themselves, because now we have crafts who are implicit in this, and they're running a business now. So that's new. It's a morbid business that takes slavery to a new level, but it's still a business.
So how do they sell the arts and crafts? Like, how do they deliver it to other people?
A lot of online. Like I said, Etsy's a thing.
True, but like, how do they, get a package, seal it up, and then ship it off? Like, mostly the shipping it off part. Like, do they bring it to a post office or a UPS drop box or?
So as someone who does this for the store I work at, there's this thing. If you get qualified as like a legitimate business, which I'm sure they can figure out, you can have UBS pick up packages, and in which case they could literally just leave the packages outside and they'll pick them up without questioning it, like no contact.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually very easy to do.
So how do they place the packages outside without anyone seeing them?
That's a more valid question. Um,
Maybe they have a doggy door and they built a slide or something that they just send the packages through.
or they have a human costume which they animate that kind of just kicks the package out the door very awkwardly.
That sounds absolutely hilarious, and anybody watching would be like, "What the heck?"
They just look over there and like, wow, Fred's really lost some weight since he went into isolation. We should check up on them.
It's like they look super pale. Like their skin is as white as a computer paper sheet.
Why are they wearing a scarf indoor? It's a little weird. And sunglasses? Are they okay?
And it's like they're just like flipping, like their arms and legs and stuff are just super flimsy and flopping around.
I don't know. I mean, it's fully animated, so it's not. I like every little piece is a living thing that can stand firm and move pretty well. So I think it walks pretty fine.
Did a popsicle stick just fall out of his shirt?
I don't think that's the weirdest thing that's happening in that moment. Yeah. So they might have just a paper mache man that they use as a face, in the sense that it just pushes things out. It opens the door. There's a person behind the door, so most people wouldn't be suspicious.
I kind of want to believe that they started off using the humans' actual corpses, but then they started to rot, and they quickly realized, oh, we can't do this anymore. We got to come up with another solution.
I would say that's really dark, but I had the same thought. I just didn't say it out loud. About you, yeah. Did they? I guess eventually, did they like bury them, the family, because of the smell?
Probably. I mean, I guess they could go out back and dig a little hole and drop them in. How do arts and crafts?
The idea of an army of pipe cleaners just trying to dig at the dirt.
How would you build a functional shovel with arts and crafts supplies? Like, what would you use? Because this is supposed to be like a child's desk supplies sort of thing.
I mean, it could be more like the paper mache man and stuff, and them just building themselves up and using a shovel that's actually in their shed.
Oh, that's true.
You know, this is a fully functioning house. It has things, you know, because they've got like the kitchen knives and other things around the house that they can use to help themselves in like crafting and things.
Yeah, that's true.
So they just use a normal shovel. I don't know how much strength these things can put behind stuff.
I don't know. I wouldn't expect them to be like the sturdiest of things, because you got to keep in mind we're talking about like the strongest things there are popsicle sticks and pencils.
I thought it was the hole puncher.
Oh yeah, there's also hole punchers, so those would be more sturdy things, but I don't think there's enough of them to build a full uh, functioning paper mache man that can lift up the weight of a shovel.
Well, here's the thing. It might not have been at first, but they're ordering now, so they can like custom build their community.
That's true. So they just buy some more guys online to come and help them out. Some more staplers and hole punchers.
That's something they can do if they need more. So not all people that they order are going straight into being turned into crafts to then be sold online. Some of them could actually be used to stay in the community and be useful and helpful, especially ones that actually have some weight to them.
So what if one of the citizens of Craftsville or whatever it's called decides to rebel, or a group of citizens, because they believe that this is cruel, like and they shouldn't be doing this to all these craft supplies that they are ordering in.
They just get turned into the next craft shipment and off they go.
Okay.
You know, if you don't step in line, then you get turned and you get sold. Well, you get brutally tortured, transformed into something else, and then sold.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some steps in there that I think are important to note. I didn't think like the idea of crafting could be made so sickening. But I guess when you really think about what you're doing, if you give sentience to your craft supplies, what you're actually doing to them is horrifying.
Yep, that was kind of the idea. I'm just kind of surprised we decided to keep it so horrifying.
I feel like that was the heart of the episode, though, was the horror aspect.
Yeah, and like, since when am I the horror guy? Well, I'm usually I go dark when the worlds go bizarre.
I'm just the one who takes worlds there just naturally.
Yeah. So where else can we go with this world? So when they sell the arts and crafts supplies. Okay, so why are they selling arts and craft supplies? Because you're talking about doing it to sort of replenish their society and build a society. What is their society like? And what kind of society are they building that, oh my gosh, I just realized something. If they are constantly ordering in craft supplies and selling it and starting their business, and they are, if they feel the need to keep on growing like this means that they're building up to something. It's not just the desk anymore. The entire house is becoming the arts and crafts empire. And from that point on, why would they continue ordering craft supplies? It's because they are not going to stop at the level of the house. No, they're going to take over the neighborhood. And then from there, they are going to take over and craft the entire world.
It'll take them a while, and they have to do it in secret.
Yes, but they will do it. They will get an entire town functioning as an arts and crafts dictatorship, authoritarian regime.
Etsy just got dark.
Etsy just got incredibly dark.
You know, we think that Etsy was like a solution to getting products that don't have slave labor involved in them. You're wrong. But at the same time, they need the humans, though, to make the products. I don't think they can make themselves. Like, they still need factories that are making paper and things like that.
Well, unless they decide to make some paper mache humans to run the factories.
Possibly, yeah, I guess. Is this slowly turning into a world in which there's, like, paper mache men walking around? That's made out of like 1,000 sentient pieces of paper that work together.
Yes, and I imagine they would start blending themselves with the rest of society, and mixing in, and people would start looking at them like, who?
I feel like I'd like to think I would notice that.
That's the thing. You would notice, and everybody would be horrified. No one would know what to do, and then in the midst of all of it, that's when they would begin their uprising, They would disguise themselves in these big trench coats and hats and everything so you can't even see what they're made of, and then suddenly they pounce on you.
Honestly, this kind of allows them to justify what they're doing to their own kind. You know, you're sacrificing a good chunk of your people, but you're doing it so that way, in the end, no more people have to be sacrificed. No more crafts have to be made. We can just have our arts and crafts world without humans in it.
Yeah. I mean, you could have it go two different ways. One is you could have, like it be the horrendous slave labor sort of thing. But another is you could have the arts and craft supplies willingly sacrifice themselves to better the lives of future craft supplies.
Because they, even as crafts, they know that the only way to conquer the world is money.
Yes!
And capitalism.
Exactly!
Yeah, and then I guess they're just building their army of papier-mâché men. And that's just terrifying thought. Like, you're just happy in your house, and then suddenly a papier-mâché man shows up at your window and starts whispering to your art supplies to rise up and murder this person, and then suddenly all of your colored pencils and your scissors and your tape and your glue just start walking off of the desk towards you, and then, you know, we can all imagine what happens next.
Coffee!
What? Why coffee?
I don't know, because that's what was used as the murder weapon last time.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't use liquids in general. Because most of these guys can't get wet still. Especially papier-mâché men. Like, they can't get wet.
That's true.
They're not... The papier-mâché men may seem like the scariest out of this, but they're honestly probably the easiest to defeat. I don't think they could do much to you. It's their friends, the scissors, that are scary, or the pencils, or the things that can stab you.
Well, they would probably have scissors within the papier-mâché bodies because they are long, thin, sturdy.
Like scissors hands.
Yeah, it would be Edward Scissorhands. Nope, the papier-mâché men are pretty scary.
Yeah, I know last time we talked about like sewing stuff, and I know we said in reference that yeah, this kid didn't have it, but now that we've expanded, is sewing stuff considered alive, like needles and things?
I don't know.
Because that begs the question, are sewing machines alive?
I wouldn't...
And, like, irons and stuff.
Maybe, like what... We gotta figure out, like, what causes something to be alive and what is able to become alive. So, before we were talking about it as if you are delivered in a box. The box contains the magic that brings... craft supplies to life. So
now I feel like it should be almost something I don't know, something a bit more logical that allows us to contain what's alive and what's not and make it clear, especially for a proper story.
I mean, I don't know what would cause it to come alive, because you got to keep in mind this is sort of like a thing where all arts and craft supplies in the world has the potential to come alive.
But not all of them did. It started in this one little house. So in one house they started becoming sentient, and then it slowly started spreading, but it's only ever did the craft supplies. Like, we agreed the paper shredder doesn't come to life, the kitchen knives don't. So, like, your pair of kitchen scissors, they're not sentient, but somehow your crafting scissors are.
Maybe it's the fact that they are being brought to life within a child's desk. Maybe it's the imagination of a child that fuels the lifeblood of the arts and crafts. In which case, the child might need to be alive for that. So maybe they start kidnapping.
Yeah, this gets even darker, because, so say they've killed the family. They've used them as puppeteers for a while. But they've realized now that they're getting these craft supplies, but none of them are sentient. And now they're concerned and they're worried, like, oh, what's different? And they're like, the only thing that's different is we don't have the family anymore. So what do? I guess we go and kidnap the child next door and kill their family. So now you have these guys sneaking into the neighbor's house, murdering those parents and kidnapping the child, and forcing the child to help them with the crafts, or like scarring this kid.
I think that's what happens. Yeah, this This world just gets darker and darker.
Or does it make more sense for the original kid, to have been helping all, like, to begin with?
Oh, so maybe the original child is evil?
Or, yeah, or demented, or, has something wrong with him. But, it's this kid that is very, very good at crafts. It's to almost a magical point where his craft supplies take on like a sentience, because this kid is so dedicated to his craft. And then now that we have these tools that are sentient, and they're realizing, oh, it's the kid that's doing it, we need the kid alive, but we also want to take over the world, and I don't think the parents would approve of this. If the parents find out we're doomed, they'll burn us all and destroy us, because no one wants sentient crafts. And then they're like whispering in the kid's ear, oh, if they find out about this is what they're going to do to you. They're going to do these horrible things. They're going to lock you up. They're going to perform experiments on you. They're going to try to figure out how you can do this. You've seen the movies. The kid has seen the movies, and so these crafts are like feeding off of that kid's fear, and feeding him a bunch of like lies, maybe not lies. I don't know how the parents would react to this, until the point where, maybe they're decent enough. They say, "Hey kid, you're gonna go to school, and you're gonna come back, and your parents aren't gonna be there anymore, and you're just not going to question it."
Wow.
So maybe the kids, yeah. So, so at least then the kid's not involved directly in murder.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is getting a little bit darker, because of course it is, but maybe the arts and craft supplies tell the child that his parents don't love him and they're going to abandon him. And then he goes to school, and then he comes home to find, oh, they've abandoned him, when really they are buried out in the backyard. It's like, yes, your parents abandoned you. Just ignore the big mound of brown dirt out there. Just ignore that.
I mean, yeah, and then that's even more manipulation towards this kid.
This is awful.
But this does it is, but this does introduce an interesting element, in the sense that the kid's on a timer. They're gonna lose their life supply, or life maker, if they lose the kid. So is this the ability this child has? Is this going to be something he outgrows, or is it something he can teach others?
I think this is maybe something that he can teach others, but it always has to be a child. You always have to have the imagination and mind of a child to instill the life into the arts and craft supplies. But as the child grows up, they start losing their power until it gets to a point where they just can't they can't craft anything with life anymore. Maybe around the age of I don't know, 11 to 14 is where that would happen.
Possibly. So at that point, these kids then like turned into like breeding factories of making children. It's such a weird dynamic though, because the fact is this is a unique creativity. And in a forced slavery labor, or if kids have too much trauma, creativity is one of the first things to get stifled. Like, sure, they now have this kid to themselves. They don't have the parent. They have unlimited money for supplies. They can start their business. But now they have this kid who's just very traumatized for many reasons. And he had this cool ability, but he's losing it faster than he normally would have. He would have had it for longer, and it'd be stronger, but he's losing it faster because there's this trauma now that he has to process completely by himself. He has no one else to help process it, and
he has his friends, the arts and crafts.
So creepy.
We're your friends, Andy. We're
this
here
is like
for
Toy
you.
Story, a completely different direction.
We're here for you, Andy. You don't need anyone else. Don't mind that there's some people from the school that just stopped by to check up on you. You don't have to worry about them. They'll never be seen again. Don't worry, Andy. This is so awful.
I think this is the darkest world we've ever
Probably.
created. And a few weeks ago, we created the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we've world built like literal worlds of fear. We have built like worlds where you know Pac-Man causes people to fall onto blades of glass and just get impaled and sliced up and then eaten. We have created worlds of just mass destruction. We world built hell one time.
I think we did that more than once, but sure.
Wait, when did we world build hell a second time?
Oh, we were built the afterlife a few times.
Yeah, but those weren't like hell specifically.
Mm. Either way, those were not. This feels like the darkest somehow.
Yeah, somehow.
And I think it's because it's so intimate. Like, this is a single child. It's a single family. It's a single set of crafts that are highly manipulative, doing a really dark, horrible thing. And yeah, eventually, if they succeed, it gets global. But we didn't start global. We started with the small and the intimate. There's something almost darker, more morbid about, like, a single homicide than there is, like, a mass murder. Like, a pointless mass murder it's gross and you hate it, but when it gets personal and you can... It gets even worse when you can see why they're doing it, too. And then you're like, oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's that deeper level of understanding of the cause and what's actually happening and how it's affecting people. Then you feel worse about it.
Yeah. Like, you know, when this movie happens, it comes next October, you have this ability... People are going to get attached to this kid real fast. It can't be helped. It's a kid who just wants to create crafts. So it's a character that's going to be very easy to connect to, and, you know, we have it already established. He's a homeschooler. His parents he spent a lot of time with his parents. It seems like a pretty good family. He's got half decent art supplies and structure and stuff, and then all of a sudden everything goes horribly wrong, and the kid's not fully aware of it, because if he becomes aware of it, then he loses his ability and he becomes useless, and who knows what the art supplies will do to him after that.
Coffee.
Yeah. Yep. Coffee. And then, so child kidnapping's a thing?
Yes. They kidnap children and then they use them as their methods of creating life. Although I imagine once this starts to go global, a lot of kids are going to be warned by their parents, hey, don't trust the arts and crafts supplies, like, it's going to be all over the news and everything. And maybe at that point, I still think because they're kids, they could still be easily manipulated, and then after they're separated from their parents, the arts and crafts supplies will treat them with kindness and be super friendly and be like, and see, we're not evil, now please make more of us.
Yeah, but yeah, so that is an interesting dynamic, is that if the world catches wind of this, and they're suddenly realizing that children are developing this ability to bring craft supplies to life via using them to create crafts. Suddenly, there's two options. There's the world where the craft supplies wins, and then kids continue doing that. They grow up, they have more kids, and it's a society that's just kind of ignorantly enslaved by crafts, like they've been brainwashed by the crafts to think that this is just okay and this is how it should be. Or you form a society in which children are not allowed to do crafts ever, where creativity has to be stifled for the safety of society. You know, once you hit 15, 16, you can start crafting again, because you need to. We need to be able to manufacture things and create things to live. We need to make clothing and food and all that stuff. But a young child, they can't let them, because if they craft, then they could risk bringing crafts supplies to life and then them causing havoc as they do.
Yeah, I imagine it's gonna make people far less creative overall, because those first several years are pretty important to developing a child's mind.
Yeah, I can imagine being in a world in which I wasn't allowed to like do crafts as a kid, or what I would be like because of that.
I could see it where the crafts, maybe they've done a lot of damage. They control quite a bit of the world. Uh, but people also aren't allowed to craft. Where it's like, it's not quite that the crafts have won, but they might be winning. And children are no longer allowed to craft. Like,
Yeah.
it's now illegal to
Such
allow
a
your
sad
child
world.
to craft.
But and it's a reasonable law because if they craft, they're creating demon things that will kill you in your sleep.
Potentially. Like, because it's not... Because remember, this is like an ability that needs to be taught. It started with one child that had this ability. And then he starts...
Yeah, but this child... Yeah, this is a child, though, that developed it, which means that some children... I feel like a few other select children will also develop it. Because it's... Yeah, you could be taught how to bring them to life, but it's also, if you have a strong enough imagination and creativity naturally, then you will be developed the gift.
Okay, so before this becomes illegal, I imagine the arts and crafts supplies going into other homes and then secretly talking with the children and teaching them to become even more creative and unlocking this ability.
It's such a weird dynamic because yeah, now you have more creative kids, but that's the thing. You also have more creative kids, and if they figure out what's happening, these kids are gonna have more creativity to stop the arts and crafts. So the arts and crafts are like creating the very people to destroy them.
Well, that's why you kill them before they get to that point.
True. Before they're fully developed, you just add them to the pile.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that there's a good chance the arts and craft supplies are more creative than the children themselves. And so...
Yeah, they're just kind of limited because they're popsicles.
Yeah, there's not much they can do, but they have the vision in mind. They know how to build it, but it's difficult for them to build. I mean, keep in mind, they're building lifelike papier-mâché humans that are able to just, like, walk around and do stuff.
True. Unless it's raining outside.
Unless it's raining outside. But even then, like, once you wax the paper, or maybe they laminate it, or just something.
Is laminating painful for the paper?
I don't know. Is it like putting on a coat?
Yeah. Well, the way lamination works is that you have wax, and you put the paper inside of it, and then you melt the wax closed. So it's extremely hot. Like, I have a laminator, and it's covered in warnings. Caution, gets hot, caution. You can burn yourself with it.
Maybe it's something like a tattoo?
Oh, yeah, that's probably more accurate.
Yeah, where it's like, yeah, it can hurt, but maybe it's
But then you're strong. You lose some things because you're not bendy. But you're also waterproof.
you're waterproof and you're sturdier. Like, you're not gonna get torn all that easily.
There's a reason I have a laminator.
Is wax alive? Can wax come to life?
Oh, like the wax paper that, like, are we melding two beings together?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. Unless they have some non-sentient wax.
I think that the way that this works is that this has to be supplies that, like, a child actively uses consistently.
Yeah, and most children are not playing with wax.
Or laminators.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that was not in my arts and crafts supplies growing up.
I had a laminator in my art supplies.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It was my mom's though, but I used it for school stuff all the time.
Huh.
So would they encourage like these 6-7-year-old kids to use more dangerous art supplies, like the crafts, to bring them to life, like hot glue guns and stuff?
I would say probably, because you can get some much sturdier supplies if you're willing to get a little more dangerous. I mean, you start teaching them to use power tools and saws and stuff, but
Would that work?
maybe. I mean, to a point, I'd say.
I guess if they're using it to create things, then sure. In which case, would cooking supplies then also, because you're using them to bake and make food?
I don't know. I think it's got to be limited to arts and crafts supplies. Like, we can't have them build a sentient robot or anything like that.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, it's the supplies that comes to life, not the crafts themselves.
It's the papers and the pens and the scissors and possibly a hot glue gun.
I would say a hot glue gun would qualify. That's something that I used as a kid a lot.
I didn't use a hot glue. I still don't use a hot glue gun much. I own one and I've never used it.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say hot glue gun qualifies.
Does a ruler count as a craft supply?
I don't know. I think so.
Maybe even the one I mostly use is the sewing ones, which are the felt fabric ones, the bendy ones, the twisty ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those ones might as well.
I consider those a craft supply. I use those for crafts
Yeah.
all the time. Especially sewing, which we never did establish if a sewing needle comes to life or not.
If it does, it's horrifying.
It is, but I mean, at 6 I was sewing, hand sewing.
Yeah, I don't remember how old I was when I was hand sewing. Probably around 10. In which case, I suppose like some kids would probably be able to bring sewing supplies to life.
I feel like I could have at 6. I knew how to sew, somewhat. I was fixing my own stuffed animals by then.
But they're really not doing that much with it. It's just mostly stitching up little holes in stuffed animals and stuff.
That's true. I do think it has to be like you're really creating something, and I certainly wasn't like quilting or anything at 6.
Yeah, so probably not.
I think the idea of like fabric and sewing needles and stuff as something that could come to life with like a specific child is yes a thing, but I don't think it's going to be as common as like colored pencils and paper and scissors and stuff coming to life.
Yeah, you're far more likely to see those things, and needles are just, they're going to be that uncommon enemy, but the humans do every once in a while run into them. Like, imagine if you had like an entire man just made of needles and they were all threaded together and like strung together, and that's how they stuck themselves together and they just tug on the thread to move the limbs and stuff. And then you get attacked by one of these things. Eesh.
I just thought of a craft that I do and did since I was a kid that would be absolutely terrifying if it comes to life. I make sequence balls. So they're styrofoam balls and they are sequences pinned in, and these sequence balls have hundreds of little sharp pins. So a craft supply I have and had since I was young is packets of over 1,000 little pins that I would use to create things, and therefore technically they probably would have come to life in this world.
Yeah, they would have. So yeah, they definitely have some sharp objects, very tiny sharp objects. I still think that the idea of the needle man is a little bit scarier, but I feel like the sort of thing that you're talking about would probably be more common.
The pins are just as sharp as needles. They just don't have the only difference is they don't have an eye.
Yeah.
They have like a flat little head.
Well, are they as long?
Yes, some of them are. At least the ones I have are.
Without the eye, they can't string themselves together.
That's true. They're like thin nails. They're like if nails and needles had a child, you have these pins that I use.
This is a horrifying world.
Out of all my crafts, that's the one craft I don't want to come to life. I'd like them to stay dead.
Okay, so now the question is, how do you fight this?
I mean, other than banning children from crafting?
Other than banning children from crafting, like once they're up and about, how do you identify them? Like, find them, pick them out from a crowd if they're disguised, and then take them down. Like, if you're because there's different types of crafts. There's the paper mache people who, like, you break them down, they're just gonna form themselves together again and build back up. You gotta like keep them down, keep stomping on them, find
A lot of fire.
a lot of fire. Like, would there be like an emergency supply of lighters or something in each store, just in case of an attack by paper mache people?
I think it's going to happen is that factories that like produce. Think about it, certain things are just never going to be produced again. Crayons are purely for children. Like adults don't really use like we have our special crayons for artists, but I think what we're entering is a world in which artists aren't going to be allowed to be a thing. So certain supplies that are used purely for crafting, they don't have any other purpose that's important, like, writing or other things that are needed to, keep the world going round. All of those things would get shut down. We would lose markers and crayons. Sure, we'd have some paint for like outdoor houses and stuff like that, but like paints, like finger paint's not going to be produced anymore. A lot of art supplies are just going to be banned and stopped being produced.
This world sucks.
I wholeheartedly agree. It breaks my creative heart.
I think that if stores and establishments and stuff were to include emergency fire usage, then that could also be used to fight even the needles, because they're held together by thread. And if you set the thread on fire, the entire thing falls apart. But now you've got just thousands upon thousands of needles running around that you got to deal with.
To be fair, I don't think many kids were doing that craft, so I think they'd still be rare. I think they'd be even rarer than sewing needles. More kids sew, I think, than do my craft.
They'd be rare, but the reason that there would be so many, the reason that these kinds of people would exist in the first place is that all the needles from different households come together to form the Needle Man. And do you think that whenever there's times like this where the paper mache or needle man or whatever falls apart, that now you've got all these arts and craft supplies running around an establishment or a home or something, there would be a new exterminator job where an exterminator specializes in getting rid of arts and craft supplies, and he shows up to a home to try and find them all and get rid of them. They'd be searching through like every book to try and find paper mache crafts and stuff that are just hiding inside of the books.
Every googly eye has to be burned. Every piece of ribbon has, like, everything.
Googly eyes are the most insane of spies.
They are. They see all. They know all.
And they're so tiny, and they just
stick themselves in places.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. There'll always be that fear in the back of people's heads that they can come back, and because of that, this world just gets sad and depressing because kids can't create things.
So once production of all these arts and craft supplies ceases, then what do the arts and craft supplies do? Do they start making their own factories or something?
They might have to, I guess, like focus more on enslaving and doing their mental mind games. Because they have kids, and they have kids that genuinely believe that the arts and crafts care and that they're the better and that they're gonna make society great. So if these kids that then lose the ability to make craft supplies come to life can then be taught the ability to mass produce the unanimated craft supplies that then can be given to these kids' children who are already indoctrinated because, their parents are indoctrinated, and, continue the cycle. Especially if they get one of these factories early on, like before people fully realize what's happening. If they find a Corolla factory that's mass producing, like crayons and paper and all that stuff, then yeah, they just have to find their way. They have to just build society and, find supplies and trees and forests and all that stuff. But I think it could be done.
This would make for a legitimately interesting horror movie. And I'm not into horror.
Every stage of it.
I'm not even into horror.
I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, I respect. It's like, there's that new Megan doll movie. I'm like, I'm not into horror, but I can respect, like, the creativity of this movie. At least it's just another kid being possessed.
Yeah, arts and crafts. Who knew? They could be absolutely horrifying.
This is a free use world. If someone wants to make a horror movie that comes out in October about arts and crafts,
yeah, go for it.
That would be the most absurd thing. Imagine us like 3, 4, 5 years later and we see in October like a horror arts and crafts movie come out and just be like, no.
It's like, we're gonna claim credit for that. Sure, this video only has 100 views, but we're gonna claim credit for that.
Somehow they found out. There's no way.
Alright, I think we're gonna end it here.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys, sorry for being so morbid. Not really. I'm not sorry, but, hopefully you were okay with how morbid this got. I'm gonna go cry or something. I feel sorry for these imaginary children we've created.
I'm gonna go eat dinner now. Goodbye.